Our topic of the day is how to use projections to win your fantasy baseball league. Who better to talk to than Ariel Cohen? Runs ATC projections. Ariel, first of all, before we get into the inputs, before we talk about how to use these projections, what is ATC projections?
Well, ATC is the average total cost projections. It's an amalgamation of other projection systems. It's a smart average of some other projections that we use. It's a wisdom of crowds method, if you will. There are other projection systems that are fantastic for homers, but not so good for stolen bases. They're good for pitcher strikeouts, but not great for walks, and so on and so forth. So I have studied and I do an experience analysis on a bunch of other projections. And I have amalgamated them in a certain smart way that you take the best and the brightest of each of them. If you take any one projection, who knows if that's really the true measure of a player, right? They might tick us, pitcher velocity might be big and okay, that's great for certain things, but they won't pick up some other thing for other players. But when you use a compilation of a bunch of projections and a bunch of methods, right? Because every projection uses a different method, then you're going to reduce parameter risk, the measure of a true talent of a player. The risk that you're wrong is minimized. And what ATC does fantastically is, if ATC says that a player is undervalued or a player is overvalued, it's usually more right than anybody else. Now, it's never going to give an outsized projection, because since you're averaging everything else, you're never going to get, oh my God, Aaron Judge is going to hit 70 homers, Cal Raleigh is going to hit 60 homers. It would have never projected that, ever. You might have other projection systems that could do that, but ATC won't. But ATC will have a higher hit rate. If ATC says, buy this guy, he'll earn money. Maybe he won't earn $10 on it. Maybe ATC will say he only will earn $3. But hey, it actually doesn't matter if you pick him and he earns 10 or 3. If you pick him, you get all the upside, right? And if you don't pick him, you lose all the downside. So if you would have lost your money on making a bad choice, ATC steers you away from it. So that's the value of ATC and how it works.
Yep. And you can see ATC projections on Rotowire. If you go to a player page, you can see the Rotowire projection alongside with the ATC projection. And it's one of the things I like. It's a reality check for me because, I have a lot of say about the Rotowire projection. So sometimes I'm out to lunch on a player, and I like this as a reality check sometimes. So it is very helpful for me as far as that goes. Let's jump into some of the components. You said, like, for instance, that some projection systems are good at home runs. Some are good at, but maybe not be good at stolen bases. Let's talk about that a little bit. I've been struggling to find power in recent years. So what inputs do you look at there when you're trying to see, like, evaluate, okay, well, they're pretty good in homers. Maybe they're missing this sort of suggestion there. What sort of things we should be looking for when we're trying to find power?
Yeah, well, ATC takes, obviously, all the other projection systems do different things. And the common things that you're going to look for power are who's got better barrel rates, homer to fly ball percentage, elite swing speed, exit velocity, launch angle, just straight up fly ball percentage. I find that for homers, a lot of the StatCast metrics really matter more, which is, for example, the Bat X, Derek Hardy system. He focuses a lot on that, and I find that is really, really helpful.
So let's talk about that a little bit more. So, the StatCast numbers, are you referring more to average exit velocity, max exit velocity, number of barrels? What individual StatCast metric is like the thing that jumps out at you like, oh, I need to pay attention to this?
To be honest, it's all of them.
Okay.
I think that average exit velocity and even swing speed, hard hit rate, I think those are the biggest key ones. But no, you're looking at all of them. I mean, when Cardi takes the StatCast data, he's not looking at any one statistic. He's looking at a couple of them and regressing on all of them. All of them matter. Some matter more. Again, I think the barrel rates and the average exit velocity to me are the two biggest.
Okay. Do you have baseline figures for those? Like what do you value as, like, okay, anything over this, I'm paying attention to. Anything over subsequent higher number, I'm really like, oh, wow, this is a special player. Or conversely, like anything under this, like, don't bother.
I don't have those off the top of my head.
Okay,
I mean,
that's fine. Because I don't.
Yeah.
And you know what they say? Never ask a question when you don't know already the answer to. Oh, wait, that's what they teach me and taught us in law school. And I'm not a lawyer anymore, so Guess I didn't
Yeah.
learn that lesson very well.
But I will say barrel rates, though, that you're looking for something over 15,
Okay.
over 15, 20, anything under than that is, not there. Exit velocity, that I'm not sure, but it's obviously in the 90s or hundreds for some of them.
Yeah. How stable are exit velocities, barrel rates? Is there once a player has like say he has like 1,000 at bats in his career, is there usually much growth after that?
Yeah, so I find that for power, I can tell you that for homers, it takes a little bit more than a season. So we're talking maybe like around 700 at bats
Okay.
to really stabilize. It's more at bats than plate appearances because plate appearances take into account the walks. But homers, it's per you're hitting the ball, right? If you're walking, you're not exactly hitting the ball. But yeah, it's a little bit over a season. Maybe it's a season and a quarter. So if a player has 1,000 plate appearances already, that's a pretty good sample size, and you can be sure that have a good idea of his power output.
For sure. The category that sometimes vexes me is stolen bases because it should just be like sprint speed. We know that this guy's fast. Maybe he can get good jumps. But then every once in a while, Josh Naylor comes out and surprises us. Cal Raleigh surprises us. Paul Goldschmidt used to be that guy. There are certain players. They're not naturally fast players, but somehow they rack up the stolen bases. And other fast players that have all these wonderful sprint speed metrics don't run much at all. And it's really vexing to me at times.
Yeah, so stolen bases are a little bit tricky because unlike power, where it's a pure skill set, it's more manager and player decision. I once spoke to Rajai Davis, and I asked him, hey, how do you know if a guy's going to steal 30 bases in a year? And he said, oh, he just wants to steal the bases, and he goes for it, and that's it. Yeah. So, it sounds a little silly, but that's really what they do. It's more manager team philosophy. I'd say if you find the team is going for stolen bases more, you'll see an increase. For example, the Mets last year had an initiative, let's steal bases. And voila, look at Juan Soto, who led the National League in stolen bases. I cannot believe it, but he did in stolen bases. Who would have thought that? Now that the coach is no longer at the Mets, but will they continue? Who knows? But it is a manager decision. It's a team philosophy. The important statistics to take a look at are stolen base success rate. If you have players that have under a 78% stolen base success rate, they tend to be given more of a red light. Teams don't want them to steal. If you have players that are over 82, 83%, they tend to want to steal because those are going to be successful. Anything around 80 is, a coin toss. Okay. So that's really the gauge. By the way, just to give an adage to Carlos Beltran, who just made the Hall of Fame, he has one of the highest stolen base percentage rates of anybody elected to the Hall of Fame with over 200 or so stolen bases. I think he had like an 86% stolen base clip, which is phenomenal. Those are the really key metrics there. The other thing to track is stolen base attempts divided by stolen base opportunities. If you look at all the singles and walks and you take the stolen base attempts divided by that, you can tell whether players are going to steal or not. And look at it in a team context, not just a player context, to get whether they're going to do it. Again, Josh Naylor, he jumped teams. That was the decision was to run. The Mets decided. So you really need to look at it in a team context, but do take a look at whether they're succeeding early on in spring and early on in spring training, but early on in the year. It's one of these things where you might not be able to tell until you see their philosophy in April.
Yeah, absolutely true. It's, and sometimes you get a player that gets traded to a team. Oh, like who was it that got traded to the A's, ran like crazy for the A's and then landed on the Mets after that? God, why am I? It's not Beltran, but recent.
Not this year.
No, like maybe like 5-6 years ago. Anyways, it's like he was just that good. He was on such a success rate that he was, they said, you keep running, even though it was the A's. It's the Moneyball A's that never run. Yeah, he ran.
The one other thing I do want to add, though, with stolen bases, it really depends on where you are in the lineup and who's surrounding you. If you're batting ninth in the order, then you might want to steal some more bases, right? If you're batting second and you have some great OBP players after you, the manager decision might not be to steal, because you might get out and you might be lost where they can hit homers and they can get you in anyways, right? So it really depends on where you are in the lineup. As far as stealing, not as much as it used to be. Back in the day, it used to matter more. Nowadays, it's players who decide to run. It's managers. It's individual decisions, right? If you're successful as a stealer, they want you to. If they don't want you to, they won't. But it is a component.
It absolutely is. And I'm going to spend the rest of the podcast thinking about this one. Oh, Starling Marte. That's who it was.
Oh, sure, of course.
Yeah, he ran like crazy.
He is the active major league stolen base leader, by the way, right now.
Fun fact. So yeah, stolen bases are interesting. I think opposing catchers, if you're trying to get like micro for like a week, you start paying attention. Okay, they're playing the Marlins. Augustine Ramirez is behind the plate. Let's go. There's some teams that are like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're playing DFS or so, then yes, you do want to look at the opposing team and catcher.
Absolutely. All right. Batting average. What are some of the things you're looking for there?
I'm looking at contact rate, which is basically your strikeout rate, right? I'm looking at plate discipline, hard hit rate, swing speed is there. But one of the other big things is the split between ground ball, line drive, and fly ball. Players who are having ground balls tend to have low batting averages, right? Line drive hitters tend to have high batting averages. I also look at historical BABIPs. You can players obviously regress to a 300 mean, but players set their own BABIP. You have the speedy players who are going to set their own ones, and they're naturally going to have a bigger batting average because they will regress to a natural higher batting BABIP.